Welcome to Moments Almanac on Scattered Moments for today, August the 23rd. Two places, two fires, and two lies that had become so familiar, people had stopped recognizing them as lies. In Massachusetts, the fire was beginning to go out. 31 years earlier, fear of witchcraft had consumed Salem. Neighbors accused neighbors, courts accepted testimony about invisible spirits. Innocent people went to the gallows because frightened communities became convinced that suspicion could masquerade as evidence. One of the men who finally challenged the thinking died on August 23, 1723. His name was Increase Mather. And on another August 23rd, nearly 70 years later, and 1,500 miles south, a very different fire was spreading. Sugar plantations were burning, enslaved men and women were rising, and one of history's most profitable lies, the idea that one human being could own another. Now let's go to 1639. Let's begin with Mather. Increase Mather was born in 1639, the son of a Puritan minister who had crossed the Atlantic seeking freedom to worship according to conscience. By 1692, Mather was one of the most powerful religious voices in New England, pastor, theologian, and president of Harvard College. The witch trials had begun with accusations from young girls, but fear spread quickly. Soon the courts were accepting something called spectral evidence. An accuser could claim that the spirit or specter of another person had appeared invisibly and tormented them, and somehow that could help send the person to the gallows. 19 people were eventually hanged. Mather was hardly a modern skeptic. He believed in witches. He believed in the devil. And his own son, Cotton Mather, had defended aspects of prosecutions. But Increase Mather saw something terribly dangerous happening. In October of 1692, he presented an argument later published as Cases of Conscience Concerning Evil Spirits. His point was simple. You cannot take a human life on evidence no one can see, test, or verify. Then came the sentence history remembers. It were better that 10 suspected witches should escape than that one innocent person should be condemned. Mather's record was complicated. He also defended the judges and his son from some of the criticism that followed. So this isn't a story about a flawless hero riding into Salem to save the day. It's more interesting than that. It's a story of a man inside the system beginning to recognize that the system had lost its way. Soon the special court was dissolved. The executions stopped. Increase Mather lived another 30 years, dying in Boston on August 23, 1723, at the age of 84. And then another 23rd. Another world, another lie. By 1791, the French colony of Saint-Domingue, modern Haiti, was staggeringly profitable. Its sugar and coffee generated enormous wealth. But there was something hidden inside every spoonful of sugar shipped from the island: human suffering. Roughly 500,000 enslaved Africans labored under the plantation system, notorious even by the brutal standards of slavery. People were bought, sold, beaten, worked to death. And all of it depended upon an enormous lie. Some people are less worth than other people. In August of 1791, enslaved leaders began meeting secretly across the northern plain. Tradition remembers one gathering at a wooded place called Bois Cayman, associated with voodoo leader Duddy Boukman, and a priestess remembered as Cecile Fadiman. The details of that night have become difficult to separate from later retellings, but what happened next is unmistakable. On August 22nd, enslaved workers rose against the plantations, and by August 23rd, the northern plain was burning. Cane fields went up in flames, plantations fell, thousands joined the revolt. The Haitian Revolution began. Boukman himself would not live to see its conclusion. He was killed only months later. But the uprising continued for 13 astonishing years until in 1804, Haiti declared its independence. And enslaved people had defeated armies sent to keep them enslaved. And a lie that had presented itself as economics, law, tradition, and simple common sense had been exposed by the people who refused to keep living beneath it. That may be what connects to August's story. Not that Increase Mather and Duty Bachman were alike. They weren't. Not that their struggles carried the same cost. They didn't. But both stories remind us of something uncomfortable. A lie becomes most dangerous when everybody gets used to it. Salem had become accustomed to fear. Saint-Domingue had become accustomed to slavery. And once enough people accept things as normal, normal itself can become almost impossible to question. Scripture repeatedly warns us about that kind of blindness. Isaiah wrote, "Woe to those people who call evil good and good evil." Because sometimes evil doesn't arrive announcing itself as evil. Sometimes it arrives as tradition, sometimes as fear, sometimes as profit, sometimes as something everybody around us simply assumes must be true. And that's why truth requires more than knowing the right answer. Sometimes truth requires the courage to question the room, to examine what everybody else has stopped examining, to say maybe we are wrong, maybe this isn't justice, maybe what we've accepted as normal was never right at all. August 23rd remembers two worlds confronting lies they had learned to live with. And perhaps that's a good question to carry with us today. What have I gotten so used to that I've stopped asking whether it is true? Because some lies survive not because nobody knows better. They survive because everybody has learned to live with them. And sometimes grace begins with the courage to stop.